If you have this raging desire to meme on your adversaries, I'm not sure there's ever been a better unit for the job than the dreaded Bloated Corpse. Nicolas Cage might disagree. I heard he really hates bee onagers from Rome 2, but these nasty creatures are certainly up there. It's a pirate ambush at the Cliff of Beasts as an Empire artillery train comes under attack, and Aranessa Saltspite searches for booty to plunder. XMT Slade, our resident meme lord, has a spicy little raiding party here under the banner of the Jolly Roger, 5 bloated corpses, each with max gold chevrons. Why, you ask? What in the world could this possibly accomplish? Absolutely nothing, it's just funny. Aranessa herself is leading an army of scurvy dogs, vampire fleet captain with the Lore of Death, Spirit Leech and Purple Sun Azarius on her. No healing for her crabs, which might make them sad, but they do have regeneration because they are the Lamprey's Revenge, looking very green in the sunlight today, and they've got shotgun shells to share with the world. In the front, Sartosan pirates with dual cutlasses, gold chevroned as well, which will give them a solid stat line that might let them cut through swordsmen, but that won't matter if they're blown apart by mortar fire on the way in. On the Imperial side, the army is led by Markus Wulfhart, far afield and hunting for monsters. He's leading a large host of artillery, grand cannons and mortars, front line of halberds and swordsmen, with the Bright Wizard in support wielding Fireball, Flaming Sword, Burning Head, and Flamestorm. Some Demigryph Knights with halberds might be able to cut through those crabs quite quickly as well, and things will get underway very fast as the mortar fire begins to rain down from above. Sartosan pirates don't have a lot of armor. They're tightly packed, very compact formations, which means mortar fire is going to be pretty nasty on them. And even though they will have higher leadership, around 80 with those extra gold chevrons, it's still going to be bad news bears on the approach. So while those poor boys are being taken to Pound Town by high explosive shells, Slade has to do some thinking here. How does he reach these kids? How does he close into melee, deal with the demis, and get at least some of his wasteful bloated corpses into targets worthy of exploding? Because he's not working with the cloaking strat to give them invisibility, and he's not on a forced map that keeps them hidden. They're out in the open and easy to shoot, and you're losing a decent amount of value when those blow up without killing anything. Well, the Fell Bats can tie up some cannon crews, at least momentarily, and a flank overload might be in order. Keep their attention in the center with a holding force, send 2 or 3 of the bloaty boys around the sides. Cannon's doing the very smart play of targeting down the Lamprey's Revenge. Brutal shots cutting right up the gut and immediately taking 3 of their 9 crabs out of the picture, so already they're reeling and no invocation of Nehek to bring back their models. Markus Wulfhart targeting down one of the bloated corpses, which is 1 shot from death. Even a mortar might be able to trigger the explosion now, and Sartosan militia, that entire regiment is gone before they even touched melee combat. So the infantry, which there isn't a lot of, again because of these gold chevron troops, and more bloated corpses going down. Yeah, the vampires have taken a lot of damage on the way in, and they are not too happy with how things are going initially. Purple Sun of Zarius on the Demigryphs, who are trying to clear the Fell Bats off of the mortar crews. Purple Sun not dealing a tremendous amount of damage to them. You might need to overcast it to get more value there, but at least they're into close quarters now, and that should make it more difficult for the Grand Cannons and the mortars to get good shots in. I think those Lamprey's Revenge might crumble out pretty soon. Gorgeous! A bloated corpse explosion. He made it into CQB, and when those swollen lymph nodes give your regiment the bad touch, the outcome is usually quite explosive. Lots of friendly fire there, and Sartosan Free Company rue the day they signed up for a life of piracy with Aranessa. Even if they somehow win this battle, I think the Swordfish will likely have a full-blown mutiny with all remaining hands on deck. Flaming Sword of Ruin in the center to buff up those Demigryph Knights. Another bloated corpse into the halberds, and though they're not going to generate insane value for you killing off Empire swords or halberds, that is definitely a worthy trade for the armies of Aranessa. Again, more friendly fire, more Free Company exploded by these bloated corpses. Would not want to have those in your army. Seems like a death sentence, but Aranessa styling on Markus Wulfhart and Spearfisher's Net setting up a nice 1-2 punch combo from the Vampire Fleet Captain and from the pole dancing pirate wench. Demigryph Knights with a full surround off on Aranessa and the Vampire Caster, but I'm not sure that's a fight they want to take. Spear Leech will drain their life every time it's off cooldown, and Aranessa's bonus versus large, armor piercing. I think they'd be better served going elsewhere, dealing with all these other threats. They can pretty much charge the Sartosan Free Company with impunity as long as the bloated corpses aren't nearby, and I think there's only 1 or 2 remaining. Yeah, these demis are kind of being dragged down. This is not the fight they want. They do have some infantry support, and they have dealt a lot of damage to the vampire captain, but I'm not sure that it matters. In fact, they just routed off. That's a pretty big loss for the Empire. Both armies in tatters right now. Few Sartosan Free Company are free. They are perfect vigor. They have that rowdy passive, and they're relatively fast for infantry, so they might be able to close the gap on some of these remaining mortars or archers. But Aranessa's working that pole. We've seen her do it before, and we've seen her do it well. Her animation set is really fun to watch, and more importantly, it's disruptive, so I don't expect her to take a tremendous amount of damage, even against Empire swordsmen in a fight like this one. There will only be maybe 4 or 5 enemies in base contact with her, and every time she spins... Oh, we got a big bloated corpse here! We'll go back to Aranessa in a second, but look at that, the artillery crew just disappeared after that one. Demigryphs have returned, and I think Aranessa should be fine in that fight, provided she gets a little help from the Sartosan Free Company, who should be able to trundle their way over momentarily after those demigryphs are finished off by the Spirit Leech. Yeah, the Cav should rout very soon. Burning Head trying to cash out the Sartosan Free Company. Nicely dodged there. That was a sneaky little play from the Bright Wizard. That could have deleted a full infantry unit, and that might have even sealed the deal for the Imperials if that had landed. Aranessa and her army is lacking warm bodies at the moment. Another gorgeous fireball from the Bright Wizard, taking the Deathcaster down to slivers of remaining HP. See if Slade somehow manages to keep her alive. She'll need those Spirit Leeches to deal with the caster, number one, because they can't catch him right now. He's on foot, or rather he's on horseback. So definitely has the mobility to stay away from what remains of this Sartosan army. And we haven't really talked about it yet, but there is an Outrider unit with grenade launchers far in the background that dealt with the Scurvy Dogs, and those could be really useful in a late game scenario. They've got half ammunition, and they're fantastic for exploding their way through lightly armored infantry like these dual cutlass wielding pirates. A lot of decapitations, a lot of dismemberment going on. I think these swordsmen should have no issues whatsoever slicing their way through the remaining mortar crew. Bright Wizard has come over, but needs to be very cognizant of his positioning because he doesn't have a lot of health himself. And if he gets surrounded, Sartosan Free Company with 41 melee attack probably have, well, they'll have more models in base contact than swordsmen would have against Aranessa, for example. And the Bright Wizard isn't nearly as disruptive, and we can see that here, taking a lot of slices to the flank, and he might rout. That would be a huge loss for the Empire. I imagine he'll be able to return. Yeah, he's still got about a third of his HP remaining, and here come the grenade launchers to support. One thing you need to be very careful of with them is not waste their ammo. Look at how many Sartosan Free Company are left. It's not a ton, but you don't have a ton of ammunition with grenade launchers anyway, so while those shots were pretty solid, it's probably best if you just turn them off fire at will completely and make sure you only fire at non-moving targets once they're tied down. Because yeah, these shots right now, when they're at max range and moving around, and as we said, Sartosan Free Company are relatively fast with 36 speed, you're going to be wasting some shots here, and I don't think the Empire can afford to be wasting anything right now. Remaining pirate champions under the black flag charging forth. Taunt hitting the Empire swordsman, and they broke almost immediately when Aranessa charged in with her spear. That is a Spearfisher's net on the archers, who have silver chevrons. Their melee defense is lowered, and they cannot move. She has low armor too, though. Has to be very... Oh, yeah, that fireball, that did so much damage to her. Fireball is amazing versus low armor targets. And those archer volleys, even though she's a single entity, a small one, those archers would probably do a lot if they were able to get a point-blank volley into her as well. But that net bought enough time for the cutlass-wielding maniacs to close in. And now, these archers are in huge trouble. Mortal peril, as it were, and say goodbye to your noggin. Where'd it go, George? Where did it go? Yeah, they're... Oh, you guys should go back and watch that. There's a weird animation bug with the Sartosan Free Company. I'm not sure what that is. It's not completely uncommon. There are quite a few units in this game that if you watch stuff back in replays, you'll see arms and weapons do weird twirly things, but that was quite silly looking. has me scared for my soul and theirs as well. Now, the grenade launchers, I think, are going to be an X factor here. The Vampire Fleet Captain is crumbling and about to disintegrate. 4 HP, good night. She's taking a little nap. Aranessa super low too. All hands on deck chasing after the archers. But I think Sartosa is running out of steam here. Batspar pretty much dead even. And those grenade launchers are about to be out of ammunition, which will probably be relatively impactful on the balance of power. It might swing in Sartosa's favor after that. Big time fireball from the Bright Wizard. Just as he routes and a Spearfisher's net went down. Caster has been a monster this game. Despite some... It's weird because it feels like the Bright Wizard hasn't done that much, but when you think about it, he actually has. Multiple fireballs on the important single entities, which is the only reason they're both dead now. The Lord and the Hero gone. Means some Spirit Leeches that could have gone the Outrider's way will no longer be able to touch them. And he's trying to rally the Bright Wizard here, who is on slivers of health, might shatter. This is going to get really interesting in the late game. 11 minutes in, no ammo left on the grenade launchers at all. Baiting some charges. Bounce power just swung 2/3 of the way in Sartosa's favor. That can only mean one thing. The Bright Wizard just shattered completely. But here come the charges. Outriders have terrible melee stats. Sartosan Free Company, with their gold chevrons, 41 melee attack, 34 melee defense, and decent leadership. Normally, these guys would have already routed. But the gold chevrons and 9 extra leadership has kept them in the fight. But these charges are huge. And the bounce of power straight up lying to us because I think the Imperials are about to win if they rout. And they have. They just did it. The Empire pulls it out in the clutch. That was wild. And the memes fall short, if only just. The Sartosan Free Company didn't do great here, and I think a lot of that had to do with the mortars. A few of them did well. 170 kill one got 1700 damage value. The Bloated Corpses, again, they're never going to show very highly on the damage value unless they kill like Sword Masters, which if you let your Sword Masters of Hoeth get exploded by Bloated Corpses, you're really effing up bad. Aranessa did great, but for the Empire, I think that Bright Wizard has to be MVP. Them or the grenade launchers for sure, the two that were remaining in the late game. Managed to pull it out in what was a very dire situation and a wild race to the finish. Hope you guys enjoyed.